and welcome to UFO Connection. I'm your host, Cynthia Siegel. Today we are going to talk about propulsion systems that may be used by some UFOs and, as we understand it, are being used by military craft in the U.S. today. We have with us Jess Fritsch, who, for those of you who are technically oriented, you are going to love this show. If you're into physics, engineering, always been curious, how do these craft work? Today you're going to get some of those things answered. So please join me in welcoming our special guest, Jess Fritsch. Jess, thank you so much for coming to be on the show.
I'm really pleased to be here.
Yeah, now we haven't had a show with this much technical information or on the physics concept for a long time, and I know the audience is just waiting for it. That's always been one of our most popular topics. So I appreciate your being here because you can always turn it into very simple, plain language for anybody to understand easily.
Yes, it's if you get into too much, it's going to be very, very involved.
Yeah. Now we have a ton of slides which you put together beautifully, plus video clips that's going to make it all very simple for people to understand. Right. So there's something for everybody in this episode. Let me tell the audience a little bit about you first so they have a sense of your background and expertise and how we're very fortunate to have you on this show. You've been a long-time field investigator for MUFON, the Mutual UFO Network, of course one of our favorite organizations around here. And you have been a lecturer at UFO Expo West, appearing as a presenter in both the Los Angeles and the San Francisco ones. You have been a guest on the wonderful Hilly Rose radio talk show. And you've even been featured on a couple of movies, which is very impressive, called 6 Days in Roswell, as well as the movie Roswell, the UFO Uncover-Up. So you are a self-educated, amazing person who is so knowledgeable. And what we're going to be talking about today, like I said before, propulsion systems, and especially the research of someone who you have spent many years looking into, who explained a lot of this to you through the work.
And his name is Thomas Townsend Brown.
Okay. Now, how did all this start for you? How did you end up getting so interested in propulsion systems?
Well, back when I was 13 years old, I had a UFO experience. But before that experience, I was very big into space, into drawing rocket ships and that as a young man. When I had the experience of two craft come in and hover over me in Sacramento, California, it totally changed my entire life. I started drawing saucers instead of the rocket ships as I had done before, and it set me out on a over 40-year search is to find out how they worked.
Wow.
And I've now come to the part where I know exactly how they work.
Wow, and you're going to share that with us. Now, it led you to the research work of Thomas Townsend Brown. Now, I hadn't heard of him before I read all your material and spoke with you and all those sorts of things. And he's another one of those hidden geniuses that the public doesn't know about. But, oh, wow, when you start looking into him, what a genius before his time. And so thank you for bringing the information about him to the audience.
I would think that there's probably about 90% of the population don't even know about him.
I never heard his name.
He is what I call unsung heroes. He had no college degree. He worked on this technology from the mid-1920s up until 1958 to when he finally got the U.S. Air Force to acknowledge that this really worked, to prove it to them. He went up against PhDs in physics and that, which at first in '56 was saying, well, it's ion wind, throwing it off the craft. So he put it in a what's known as a vacuum chamber, and lo and behold, it works better, a lot better.
Now, what was fun about viewing the materials, the videos, and reading the books that you provided me before, over the past few weeks before the show? This guy is one of those crazy inventors. He's not crazy, but what I mean is he's so dedicated. The videos were just amazing to me because day and day night you could see his just commitment, and there he is in his 50s, white shirt and his skinny tie and those thick dark rimmed glasses doing these incredibly elaborate experiments that were years before his time, and just doggedly sticking with it till he came up with things. And what did in a nutshell, before we get to these fantastic slides, because they're just, you put together an incredible slideshow for our audience, what did he discover? Give people an overview.
Okay. Essentially, he was working in the mid-1920s for an astronomer by the name of Byfield. And Byfield was a classmate of Albert Einstein. And Einstein had a big thing into gravity and the relativity and that sort of thing. He gave this to Brown and told him to take it and see where you go with it. Well, Brown asked him what could be used to create this. And Byfield told him a capacitor.
Okay,
now,
so
a capacitor...
Okay, so in other words, he was challenged to try to replicate the gravitational field of a star system in something small here on the planet that would mimic that to some degree. And the capacitor seemed to be the closest thing. Is that accurate?
That's accurate in that what he was trying to do was to create, because what Byfield was seeing, that stars throw off what's known as gravity waves.
Okay.
And so they wanted to recreate that, create that wave artificially. And the capacitor is what does this.
Now, did they know at the time what value a gravitational wave would have?
At that time, no. They were in the very beginnings of trying to understand what this was doing.
So the application wasn't even understood at the time. They just wanted to recreate it and then see what to do with it.
Well, even up until he was finally finishing the work in 1960 and turning it over to the Air Force to create the craft, they still, at that time, they didn't even have anything in physics to explain what was doing. And it took them 20 to 30 years later, and it came out with a technology called, or an area called subquantum kinetics.
Wow.
And it's very, very involved.
My goodness. Yeah, that would be. Okay, so he created a capacitor. Now, for those people who don't know what that is, can you simply...
The best way to describe a capacitor, in electronics, it holds electricity. But if you picture a big reservoir that holds water, that's essentially what a capacitor is done, only for electricity. Okay,
so it's a holding tank.
Right.
That's all a capacitor is.
That's all it is.
So
and what it does is it builds up, and then as it gets to its full thing, it lets some of it off, like the water flowing over the top of the dam.
And so if you can control the water, the electricity coming off of it in a controlled way, then you can control something else with that.
That's
Is that
correct.
what it's about?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so instead of making it a random process.
Right.
Okay, well, so far it sounds very easy to understand.
Oh, yeah.
And so Thomas Townsend Brown created this capacitor that held a lot of energy, and he could control the rate at which it's giving off. There's more to it, though.
There's more to it now.
Much more.
And that's what we'll do. When I get into the slides, I'll go through it and show you how it's done.
Why don't we start going to the slides now? What do you think?
Fine.
Okay, let's begin our slideshow. So we're going to go to the very first slide.
This is a picture of Thomas Townsend Brown. In fact, it was his passport photo.
Oh, yeah, and you can see how wonderfully straight-laced and 50s she's looking.
This was probably back in the 50s or even before then.
I love that picture.
The term electrogravitics essentially is a question, electrogravitics, is it anti-gravity or the control of gravity? And it's one of the things I've always found when talking to the public, they always want to use the term of anti-gravity in relations to this, and that's an incorrect term. Anti means the opposite of or the canceling out of gravity, and that's not what it's doing. Okay,
so Thomas Townsend Brown learned how to control gravity.
Right.
Not negate it. Okay.
Now, as a capacitor, what this is here, we have your positive and your negative plate on it, and you have material in between them, which is called a dielectric material. And what they're talking for is a high K value. The K is dielectric constant. It's that material there, and it's how much electricity it can store.
Okay, so what you put between these two, the black lines represents like a shell, and this is sort of like, let's think of it as insulation or some dividing material between
the positive. Well, they use
ceramics.
They use a metal type of ceramics in between them to make capacitors. The higher than.
Okay. All right.
Now, Dr. Mason Rose was one of his colleagues working on it, and he described the use of how these things work. The saucers that Brown made had no propellers, no jets, no moving parts whatsoever, and they created their own modification of the gravitational field around the craft.
So in other words, it's a perfect description of a disk.
Right.
Like
and here, as we see, is you have a disk. The leading edge is the positive charge and the negative at the back. The positive is going to create what's known as a gravity well. Okay. It's pushing, in a sense, it's pushing the fabric of space down.
That's what we see on the right side of the screen, the dipping down.
The negative on the left side is pulling the fabric up. It's creating a gravity hill. Now, together, they are creating a gravity wave.
Huh.
And the best way to think of this is a surfer on a surfboard riding the waves.
And just looking at the diagram, we see the shape of the wave there. And since it's sloping down towards the well at the front, does that...
It moves towards the direction.
Does it go straight forward, or is it a leaning forward but moving straight?
It'll actually go straight forward.
It will. It won't be tipping down.
Because of the speed on that.
Okay. Very good so far. Very good, Jess.
Now, electrogravitics also creates its own hill. And that's what we just saw.
In the back.
And this is how it's done in that. Now, that hill, it takes that in any direction that it wants to. Plus, since it's creating its own gravity field, the occupants inside have no sensation of movement whatsoever. It means that it can make these incredible high-speed turns, and as you normally would think, the person inside is slammed against the wall. It's not. You can have a coffee cup sitting in there and it won't even ripple.
You know, that explains so many things, because people argue that our government could not have a craft that does these maneuvers because humans inside would not be able to withstand it. But if it is run by this gravitational field, they wouldn't feel it, and that takes care of that obstacle.
The same principle is that the Earth is rotating on its axis at 1,000 miles per hour. And we don't even feel that because we are inside its own gravity field. It's the same principle.
Oh my gosh. All right, let's go to the next slide. This is fabulous, Jess. You're just explaining things so clearly. All right.
These are taken from his actual patents. And the one on the left shows looks like an umbrella, and another a flat in the capacitor. Yes. They found that the umbrella, which has a curved surface in that, has more surface space for the power to go out, so you have a better lift and control of the craft.
Versus flat. That makes sense.
And on the right-hand side, this was an experiment he did. You take a T-pole for a structure in that and hang two discs. They were 18 inches in diameter. They're aluminum with plexiglass in between it to insulate it. And then you have an extension out with a copper wire. The copper wire is charged positive. The disc is charged negative. And at 50 watts of power, that's a light bulb.
Oh, yeah.
At 50,000 volts, they got movement of 12 miles per hour around the circle. Now, when they pulsed it, and it's a technique in electronics of pulsing that electricity out of that capacitor.
And pulsing means
you get
on, off, on, off, on, off,
in a sense. You're getting what's known as a gravity kick.
Okay.
The acceleration at the same voltage and same wattage in that, just with this pulse rate, the acceleration is so great it nearly tore the rig apart.
Oh my gosh. So instead of going 12 miles per hour, it's going like 1,000 miles per hour. Oh my gosh. Very good. Let's...
Now this is how you take it. The outer skin of the craft, in fact the entire skin of the craft, is the propulsion drive. And it's sandwiched with dielectric material, and it's shaped in a sense like a triangle. The larger base end is actually towards the outer side away from the craft. That is where the force is going to be sent out from the dielectric material. And they can change that either by positive or negative charge. You can switch the charge by instantaneously.
So, and if you were to switch the charge, would you be, instead of going forward, go backwards?
You can change the direction. Essentially, you're still moving forward, but you're changing the direction of motion. If you're going, say, to the west, and you want to go to the east, it's by simply changing the polarities on plates on the craft, and you change it instantaneously. Okay.
Wow.
These are how they're making these incredible
moves. Now, why
moves.
is the triangle instead of the curved? You said before in the earlier diagram there's a curved surface, and
it's in a curved area, but this is how the material is shaped inside the craft.
Oh, okay. All right.
Now, this is an actual photo, and it's from the silent footage that is available of one of these discs and the plexiglass that he used and hung from that. He got to ones about 3 feet in diameter and using higher voltage up to around 250,000 volts. And it's when they start really finding the actual craft is putting out probably 18 million or more volts of power.
Wow. Versus 50?
Yeah.
Oh my God. Just from pulsing it.
Just from pulsing
and using this
system. Now,
system.
the pulse rate is how they control the speed. But now this is a drawing that's showing the testing of lift in that. The center of it, you have your dielectric material, and you have positive all on the top, but a very small area that's negative. And in the 50s, he got up to 110% of the weight of the test rig. It means the weight of that rig itself plus 10% more of that weight it could lift.
Oh my
and this
God.
was on about 300,000 volts in that. They were working at, again, very small voltage.
Wow.
Now, on the left is an actual picture of one of these test rigs, and they look like umbrellas. And believe it or not, it was balsa wood.
Oh, for heaven's sake.
And aluminum foil was all they were using.
Well, that's not hard to lift, though.
No, they're looking at that time with small amounts of power.
Okay.
At the most, maybe 500,000 volts in that. You get into more on that on it when you get into it. Now, these pictures here, that's Brown holding one of the 3-foot disc that was used on it. And again, on the other photo is you're going to see these round balls, metal balls, and they're very, very important in the design of that, and I'll show you later on.
Okay.
Now, this is the interesting thing. If anyone knows Adamski, and back in the 50s, he took pictures of this UFO, and believe it or not, it looks a lot like that.
So are we looking at an Adamski UFO, or are we looking at a Brown?
This is the Brown prototype model. It's small. He built to do testing.
Which came first, the Adamski photo or Brown's test?
That's what I've been trying to say. Now, some of them say it was about 56 or something like that, or 52, that he took those pictures. Now, this is back in 58, 59.
So he might have been inspired to try this design.
Because he was already seeing this shape in his work and how to do this.
And oddly, his work did not come out of, initially in the 20s, from his interest in UFOs. It came out of just an interest as a scientist.
Right.
And then later on,
learning to get this, why they're seeing these gravity waves. In fact, about 10 years ago, we had 3 probes out. There's the Galileo probe and 2 others in that. And they were trying to do an experiment to see if they could detect these natural forming gravity waves coming through the system. By the signals from these spacecraft.
Oh,
and it failed. It failed. They didn't see anything.
Yes, everybody's, well, very good. Okay.
Now, this shows it in a vacuum chamber, and they're doing a lifting with this model.
Now, is outer space a vacuum or not?
Yeah, vacuum, yes.
Okay.
Because actually particles are hundreds of feet apart.
Okay, so it's not a perfect technical vacuum, outer space, but for purposes of how far the molecules. So in other words, you're saying even in outer space,
it works better.
It works better.
Because what they were doing in 1956, physicists were saying, well, it's throwing ion wind off of the craft in that. So Brown put it in a vacuum chamber, and lo and behold, it works a lot better. And in fact, they have an increased speed and capability when it gets outside the atmosphere of the Earth.
What is ion wind, though? You kind of lost me for a second.
Ion wind is the same thing if you have an airlift of a wing for the airlifting.
Oh, so that would normally slow something down.
No, the ion wind going over would act the same way as the air does over a wing in an airplane to cause lift.
Oh, okay. And this proved that was not what was causing that effect.
As soon as they put it in a vacuum chamber, that disproved the theory of the ion wind.
Okay, very good. Okay, now we're taking a few-minute break from the slides, and then in about 5 minutes we're going to go to your video footage. But let's talk a few minutes. This is great stuff.
What we're going to show you here was smuggled out of the Nellis test range in November of 1994. It's on U.S. government tracking cameras and radar. And all around the range, it's about 3 million acre range in that. It's a bombing range for the military. And they have civilian contract workers that are based at Indian Springs Air Base, which is down the southern bottom part of it, of the base of this range.
Is this near Area 51 is what we're talking about?
Area 51, or actually it's Groom Lake, is part of this.
Okay.
And these contract workers are there mainly to keep aircraft from straying into the range, make certain if they're bombing with live bombs and that people aren't working on the ground under them. That's all they're there for. When the black budgeted craft, such as the F-117 stealth fighters, before they came public and that, were flying, because they were testing them there. They actually came out of the Groom Lake facility where they were flying them. These sites are all supposed to be shut down.
Okay.
Because these people are not classified to see these.
So the people who normally are keeping track of the air to make sure nobody's in the way during dangerous tests, they're not there, and maybe some classified personnel come in or whatever, but the video footage you're going to show us, somehow a mistake happened.
Somehow a mistake happened. These people did not get the word.
So they were working when they weren't supposed to be.
And we have 2 sites. We're going to start out with the S-13 site.
Okay.
And on that site, the craft is about 4.5 miles out away from the camera, so it only looks like a little blip on the screen of that. You can see a white area that's larger. That's on the lens, and it indicates where this is.
Sort of like a spotlight saying, look within this bigger circle for what we're looking at.
And at the top, you're going to see azimuth, elevation, and range. The range is how far away it is, azimuth, and so forth, and that is all part of how these angles are. And you can actually, from that information, you can draw a computer drawing of its flight.
Ooh.
At the bottom is the radar blip.
Okay.
And you're actually going to see this blip on it, and they're going to lock radar on it. Now, they're going to use the term called launch up, and that means they're actually locking radar on it. And then he's going to say, we have a kill. And that's just like in a jet fighter saying there's a fired the missile and they hit that other aircraft. And
are you saying that they
do not fire on it? No.
Oh, but they have it locked on.
That means it's really there. It's not something that's a mirage out there. It's real.
Okay.
And these guys that are on this tape and that don't know what they're looking at.
They normally would not even know anything like this exists.
Right. After they lock radar on it, this craft had been going out real slow, and all of a sudden it just jerks out. Now on the screen you're going to see it go back and forth, and that's because it's a joystick-controlled camera. They're having a hard time keeping up with it.
Okay, so it's not that the craft is necessarily...
The craft isn't zooming back and forth in that. It's their control. They're getting ahead of it, and then it comes back up and so forth.
Okay.
And then they're going to go back to what they call Save 4, and they're going to move that camera back to that, and they're going to switch from the S-13 site to the S-30 site, which is quite a distance.
Okay.
And this craft travels it within seconds.
Huh. Okay.
And they're talking probably around 70 miles distance between these two sites and that. In the S-30 site, they're going to come in real close on it, and it is really going to see the black craft and the white plasma field around it. Now, when they get the tape, I'll kind of go in through and explain a few things in it, because later on you're going to hear a voice say non-flare, and they're being ordered by someone else in a higher position to shut their sight down.
When we hear non-flare, that's when they were told...
They're being ordered.
Turn this off.
Right.
Okay.
And you'll actually come down saying the radiator's not radiating, and that's what it means. They're shutting down.
How did you get this footage, Jess?
I have a friend who used to be with that base there. He was one of these controllers, but he was not one on this tape. And he was on the Sightings program that aired it in 1995.
So how did Sightings get this? I mean, this sounds like it should be very heavily classified.
The individual who took it and got it out, he got it to Sightings, but he got caught. And he went to prison. And as far as I know, he's still in prison, because this is a very, very severe...
Sort of treason, huh?
It's very severe. But for the government to go after the tape would be them to acknowledge that it's the real.
You don't think they could just have it disappear?
No. Mostly they just ignore it.
Okay.
And because when they start saying something that on it, then they're indicating it's real.
Okay, I understand.
They don't go after people anymore. It's very rare.
Well, I've heard different stories, but that's fine. Okay, so this got aired. You heard of it 2 months after you saw this tape.
I had it 2 months before they aired it.
And then it got aired on Sightings. This was like, what, 10, 12 years ago or something?
It was 1995.
Okay.
And their so-called experts had no idea what they were looking at. Okay. They actually stated in one area on the tape and that, oh, it looks like it's changing shape. Well, it's not. The only thing that's changing shape on it is the plasma field is moving around the craft.
Okay. Now, when we watch this video, there's going to be sound, but parts of the video is going to be quiet, so we're going to talk over it, and then other times they're going to hear the actual controllers making comments.
Yes, and they're not going to know what's going on. In the second part of the tape, they think we have a helo, and helo is military term for helicopter. And you'll actually see the black craft in that part of it, and you'll see kind of a ripple around the craft. That is the field. And it looks almost like a pulsing. It looks like two rotor blades on a helicopter.
So they're calling it a helicopter in the end?
That's what they think, but they don't know what it is.
Okay.
And they state that. Because once they get up above a certain level, then they see this white around it, and that totally blows their mind.
Okay.
They know that they got something really strange in that, yeah.
We get to hear the surprise and astonishment of the controllers. Okay, let's go to the video. It's about 6 minutes long, and let's check it out.
Okay, again, that's azimuth, elevation, and range at the top. You have S-13 at the bottom, and you'll see the blip there.
Okay, so the big circle is sort of like the spotlight.
That's on the lens, and a little white dot
towards
in the middle,
the bottom
is the craft.
The unidentified object. Now, Jess, is in your opinion, a UFO or one of our craft using this advanced propulsion?
This is an IFO.
This is an identified flying object, as far as you're concerned.
I know it for a fact, because when you get into another thing, you'll see how it is, and understanding how electrogravitics works, this is working exactly the same.
Well, yeah,
All the
but
principles
don't
are
some
there.
UFOs perhaps use this
one is not.
gravitational system?
There are craft that work that way, but this particular one, because it's black.
So you think that if it behaves this way, any craft that is like a UFO, but it's painted black, is no longer a UFO. It's one of ours.
It's one of ours.
Using this advanced propulsion system.
Right. And if you look at the military today, we have black helicopters, we have black on everything, and that is for a reason.
Okay. Now
you hear the controllers in the background.
They're very hard to understand. Do you want to point out anything in particular that they're saying?
Yeah, I think if they listen and watch this right now, in a little bit they're going to lock radar on it. You see down the bottom right-hand side in that, it'll say LAU or something like that. That means launch up.
Launch up. And remind us what that meant again?
That's locking radar.
Locking radar is launch up. Okay. I didn't realize that they used the spotlight like that to center it. That's very clever. So
it's used on a lot of lenses.
So that has nothing to do with a field around it. That's just there trying to get it centered.
That's on the lens.
Very interesting. Like a bullseye, so to speak.
Correct.
Okay. Now, is the object moving and they're staying on it, or is it...
Yes, if you look at the range top right, you'll see it changing. So it's very slowly moving.
So is it moving in one direction only?
Yeah, it's in a kind of straight line at this point.
So these guys are doing a good job staying on it.
18 degrees, 18.6 degrees elevation, 10.8 degrees or kilometers range. We're going to put a launch up on it anyway and see what happens. It seems to be hovering there. Launch up, 21.3 degrees, 18.5 degrees elevation, 10.9 K. It appears to be going outbound real slow. There's hardly any range velocity. I don't know if this would be an impact or not. We have impact, 024, 18.3 degrees elevation, 11 K.
What does that mean, we have impact?
We'll call this a kill on this unknown
aircraft. It means they did impact means that they've actually hit it with a radar.
They've hit it with the radar, okay. It's a solid object.
No tactics.
Okay.
Right now, they're saying this is weird because suddenly you see it go around, the joystick control camera, let's keep up with that.
Yeah. It's gone up. Oh my goodness. Okay, now, it's not that the object is wiggling around at a weird pattern, it's that they're trying to lock on it. It's the camera.
They're trying to keep the camera on it.
So they were using the joystick. No. What's
Now,
going
what they're
on?
having here is they're moving the camera back to what they call state 4. That's its normal position where it would be on the stand. And now they're going to switch. There's going to be kind of some static in the middle here because they're going to switch from the S-13 site to the S-30 site.
Oh, we can see the radar is flat a lot of the time.
It's moving around that. Now they're going to change it. This is where they're changing.
Okay, it'll take a few seconds, and then we're going to
what
come
we're going to
back.
do now, when it comes clear here, look at the radar. The radar is this wiggly line down the bottom because the craft is jamming that radar. Military aircraft have the ability to jam radar to protect themselves. This is jamming. Now you notice it's black in color.
Very interesting. So they can't get a radar read. This is just a visual lock right now.
Right.
Well, this is much clearer.
And now you'll notice there's kind of a fluctuation around the black. This is the field. You're going to see the field better when it gets up.
Okay, so we'll get a better view of
Again, they're having trouble keeping with it, so it comes out and goes in and this joystick.
static. Very difficult with the bad gravity.
It's part of the thing.
I got a helo.
Now look at the things I've got a helo.
Yeah, really bad on it.
Okay, very nice.
It looks like that.
Yeah, and that's the field around it. The gravitation.
That's the pulsing kick. Now, what is important now, we get into the control line here. You'll see the white plasma field around the craft.
Yeah. And that is... Is the craft making this motion? Oh, that is an odd-looking craft. It's sort of an acorn. Is it an acorn shape or is
No,
it
it's a disc.
field? It's a
It's
disc?
the way the field is right now.
Okay, I see.
You don't
And it
see
looks
it.
like the field is on the one side only.
All comes up. Four plates on top, four on the bottom.
So we're looking at the bottom. We see the
We're kind of
four
looking down at the bottom like this.
Okay. So you're going to talk more about that, aren't you?
Right.
When we go into your slideshow.
Now, right, you're going to be able to hear him say non-flare.
Where'd it come from?
Way down.
Maybe we can turn the
That's
static
it.
down. Okay, that's the end of the video. Right?
Yeah.
Okay. My goodness. Well,
Now,
I think that's pretty wild to get that
To
smart
seeing
event
those
there.
four fields around it, the four plasma, it looks like a clover. If you have, in a sense, a disc, you have 2 plates positive, 2 negative, and you're getting your forward moving. If you want to, if you're going this way, you want to go this way. You just change this plate and this plate. Change the polarity.
So whichever is positive
It
will
goes
be...
in that direction.
Okay, so if, like you said, we have 4 plates, if you want to go this way, let's say you have them here and here, you're going to enact that one. If you want to go this way, you're going to put the 2 that are facing in that direction.
Correct.
Oh, interesting. Now, Adamski's UFO, purported UFO video pictures that we saw earlier, that Townsend,
That Brown did.
Brown reproduced in one of his experiments, the design, that had 3.
Well, that's a smaller one in that, and they weren't working as a full craft for that, because what they were doing there was testing lifting.
Okay, and now the 4 would allow for any
Right.
direction whatsoever.
In fact,
That is
there's a lot
clever.
more involved in the plates in that when you really get into the design of the craft.
Wow.
And you're getting more for up and down and movement around in that.
That is absolutely fascinating.
And the key is no moving parts whatsoever.
How? Okay, where is the energy start? I mean, a capacitor.
It's the power source is inside.
What is the power source?
The whole craft is the capacitor.
Do you have to put something in to get it started? I'm so ignorant about,
Well,
engineering.
there's beliefs that they're using nuclear power on it. That's one idea. And they do have portable nuclear reactors that would give enough power to power a craft like this.
Now, what's to keep the energy from draining off as they're using it?
Well, actually, once you put it in the capacitor, it doesn't drain.
Ever?
Ever, until they actually ground it and drain it off.
You mean so this force field or the gravitational field we're seeing around it is not energy being sent out?
That's correct.
It just always stays.
It
So you're
stays
talking
there.
about free energy, Jess?
That's correct. Free energy is really great, but we'll get to that later. We go to the slides, I can show more on how we do on these.
Let's do it. This is so fascinating. Let's
Okay.
go to a slide.
Okay,
All right. They're almost ready.
ready?
So what is this first
Okay,
slide?
what we're looking here, and this is from the silent color footage that he did from 1958 through 1960. This is what I totally believe is the underside of the prototype craft. You have in the center there, the little circle there, is that kind of round copperish color thing, and that is where the energy is built up and stored.
Okay.
And the metal balls, as you see,
Wow.
that is charged also, and it's used as what's known as a field stabilizer, to stabilize the field.
Can you put that in very simple English for me, Jess?
Well, if you have a field and it's all kind of fluctuating, you're going to stabilize it to keep it so it's better controlled. These set up an opposite to control it.
Okay. I can follow that.
Yeah.
And, all right.
Now, this is taken from the video we just saw, and it's that first part, and you can see the jammed radar and the black craft.
Okay.
Now, this is a close-up of it from this video. And the black, again, is the craft, the white, and you'll see that even up on one side there's a little bit of white there. And that's part of it showing that the craft is circular, it's round.
Okay.
It's a disc in that.
All right.
And this is showing it a little bit better in that, showing the craft is a black and the white is a plasma field.
I have a naive question. Sorry, I'm not
No,
a
go
technical
ahead.
person. It appears to me as if the gravitational field is all, at least the white part is all on one side and the disk is on the right. Am I misreading this?
You're misreading it. It's because in the air, it's moving around. And as it's moving through it, it may be pushing it back, and you're not seeing it over this area, but it's there.
So the gravitational, the plasma field
is all the way around it now. You're just not seeing it all the time.
Is plasma the same as gravity? I mean,
No,
you're
plasma
interchanging these words.
Plasma is, gravity is the outcome of it, controlling it. Plasma is a way of saying that it's an energy field around the craft.
Okay, so the energy, the plasma, is an energy field around the craft, and the result of that energy field is creating a gravitational change.
In our cars, we have a little coil.
Okay.
And they're rated around 50,000 volts DC. And sometimes they get charged up and it's dark outside. They'll actually glow a little bit.
Huh.
And that's exactly what this is, but on a much bigger scale.
Okay.
Now this was taken, I don't know what year it was. It was in Japan. It's a U.S. Air Base. Up the top, it's an SR-71 Blackbird that was taking off. That's what they were looking at when they were taking pictures. There's all these Japanese down there, their cameras, taking pictures and that. And lo and behold, down here...
So this is an actual photograph. This is not a drawing.
This is a normal corporate jet.
All right.
You see the wing and the fuselage. Over here is a disc. And this is a step van over here. It's normal UPS step vans that deliver this stuff and that. This craft should have been inside this hangar with the doors closed.
How could they just have it sitting out there letting people take pictures?
It is a major, major breach of security. When I saw this thing, I couldn't believe it.
Good heavens.
Now this is a close-up.
Oh, my.
Doing it. And all I had was a color photocopy of the photo to work with. So the grain, when you get in it, gets kind of nest in that. But you can see the three legs, the disc, the top area here, and the disc in this area. And this is a step van next to it. You can see the window right here.
Now, are we getting up to it yet where you explained to me before the show the issue about the disc with the round part on top and the 3 or 4 balls underneath
That was the early things, and I think they've gone beyond that now.
You do? Okay, because
this is an artist drawing of what I believe is a best guess of what our craft looks like today.
Our craft, not a UFO
the United
craft.
States Air Force, or actually better known as the United States Space Force.
Wow, I haven't heard that exact term. So you think that our government has these craft, and it's like one of our advanced ones that they keep hidden for decades before the public knows.
We have an entire fleet. We have an entire fleet
What
of
is it used for? Is it used for outer space travel?
Oh, yes. We have base on the other side of the moon, on the far side, the side that we can't see. There's a base there. The lights that flew over Phoenix about 6-7 years ago, everyone's showing a wing. That's incorrect. It was a triangle that's about 1.8 miles from the tip to the back of it.
That is huge. But that's a triangle. These are discs. So why?
That's what we call an aircraft carrier or battleship, because it has 2 magnetic rail guns on board it, which is brilliant pebbles, which is a so-called Star Wars weapon.
Oh, so this craft could even fly it into outer space, huh?
Oh, yes.
And why do you think that was seen over Phoenix? I mean, was that staged on purpose?
I believe so, yes.
Just to gauge reaction?
It's so ridiculous in that they've been doing these things over public areas. The black triangles, the TR-3B, black mantas and that, are that way. And it is all U.S. technology.
Huh.
We have an underground base in the Santa Cruz Range.
So we have a fleet of craft that is perfectly designed for outer space travel. And they can go at a remarkable speed. So like going to the far side of the moon, how long might that take?
15 minutes. 15 minutes easily.
Wow. That's pretty quick.
When it took our Apollo astronauts 3 days to get out there.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
Because they're just drifting.
Okay.
Now,
what are we looking at?
This is from the patents, Brown's patents. This is how we're going to go into how the B-2 stealth bomber works, because the B-2 is not an airplane. It does not need air to fly.
What is it?
It is an advanced technology bomber, as they call it in that. It is using electrogravitics, or the control of gravity, to fly.
Ooh.
And what we have here is a flame jet generator. Now, I'll show you a picture of the bomber a little later on in that. There's a black area they said is reduced back because the heat from the engines for heat-seeking missiles and that. Not true. That is where the collector plate is for the excess ions, as you can see here.
So that's partly why it doesn't drain energy, because it's being collected and put right back in.
Right, in a closed system.
Okay.
Now then, this is another drawing from Brown did. He's doing a disc. You have this flame jet generator in the back, and they had different areas to spread out the ions out the back to create this field, and the forward area for your positive.
Okay.
To create this field, and it works for the an aircraft. These are drawings of the B-2. The forward leading edges of the wings are positively charged.
Okay.
The engines.
Oh, it's sort of like a curved look then. I see.
Are the engines are putting out your ions for your negative charge.
Oh.
And that's going to create this plasma field around the craft.
So if by having the positive in the front and the negative in the back, you're creating that well in the front and the hill in the back and that wave, and it propels it forward.
That's correct. And how to change the movement of the direction of this craft?
Oh.
By simply increasing the pulse rate on one side of the wing and decreasing the other, you turn.
But it can't go backwards because it would have to turn around and have the front point turn around. So this is, right, unlike the other disc form.
This picture right here is from the film. It's showing a wing section, and it actually shows lift using electrogravitics.
Wow.
And this is the B-2, and again, as I'm pointing here at the back, that black area, that's where the collector plate is. Believe it or not, mathematically shown, electrogravitics does not create heat. Gravity does not create heat. So that is totally negate. Once this aircraft, this craft gets up in that and gets going, it can shut all 4 engines down. It has unlimited range with no fuel consumption.
So it uses fuel to get off the ground, but
it
doesn't
uses
really
fuel to supply, because these are flame jet generators, and they are used for creating electricity only. Now, this is a drawing of the TR-3B black manta. These are the black triangles that people are seeing. Only this is seeing it from the top, which a lot of people don't see.
And what are those interesting ridges along the edges?
That I don't know.
Okay.
They don't know if it's really true in it. Someone drew this and that, because we don't have good ones. But now this is a picture in which you're looking through up to it. You can see at the 3 corners the white lights and a white light in the middle.
So this is as if we were looking up in the sky.
We're looking up underneath
the underbelly of a triangle.
Of a TR-3B black manta.
They're out there?
These are all ours. We have a fleet of these. We have a fleet of the discs. It is ready. Now, talking about free energy, this little device is spinning up there, and it's powered by this box here. And this is the key to free energy, because once these things are charged, they're permanently charged, you never lose the energy. I can create electric-powered vehicles, any vehicle, including the big rigs. The big diesel locomotives can be converted to free energy electric vehicles. So there's no recharging. Is
this Thomas Townsend Brown's invention or concept, that what we're looking at, this power generator right now?
That's correct.
So this patent exists, but nobody's really
He never really patented anything like this.
Okay, because he did have a lot of patents.
He has patents in that, but it was something different than this.
Okay.
In the 1970s in Sunnyvale, he was doing experiments on rocks. Plain rocks, dry it out in an oven, brush on liquid copper, and so you can attach your wires to it, and then charge it. And it never lost its charge. He was running clock radios off of it, anything on that, and never lost its charge, period. Permanently charged.
Is this a simple thing to make?
It's very simple.
Well, when are you going to make one?
I'm looking for a benefactor financially, but as I tell people, I don't want to be a Nikola Tesla with a J.P. Morgan as that financial benefactor. We all know what happened in that. If anyone's out there, Tesla wanted to give free energy away for free, and when when J.P. Morgan found out about it, he shut him down.
How can people learn more about electrogravitics if they're interested?
Well, they're going to put up my email address.
Okay, we'll do that at the end of the show.
And
now, you have a particular book that you brought with us, with you.
This is one I did not write.
Right.
But it's gone.
But you're recommending this, so let's do a close.
Very, very good.
Okay, what is it you like about this book?
It covers a lot of what I've been telling you here today on that.
So if people were interested in learning more about the work of Thomas Townsend Brown or that free energy device you just showed us, that generator?
You're not going to see anything on free energy in this.
Okay.
They're talking strictly on the propulsion drive.
Okay.
And because most people out there don't even know about the free energy end of it.
Where can they learn about the free energy end of it?
Well, they need to get in touch with me.
So you're the only guy who holds the secret to that box that we just saw in one of that last slides?
The only one that's been talking about it. And the only one that's actually been doing it, so many people have been telling me, oh, it doesn't work, it never came apart, it didn't go anywhere. All of it is false. In 1996, I did a lecture in Los Angeles at UFO Expo West, as you were talking about there, and had a lady in the audience, and she spoke up and she said, well, Brown was one of the co-founders of NICAP, and that's the prelude to MUFON. It's a civilian UFO group in that.
Yes, wonderful organization.
He was actually one of the co-founders of that organization. And I told her, I said, yes, that's important, but this is something that no one knew about, and it's far more important. After the lecture I gave, she came up to me, and I found out that she was his daughter. Now, I'm not giving you her name because she wishes to remain anonymous in where she's located in that. But
what did she think about your lecture and your representing him?
She was extremely thrilled about it, and she told me that her father considered the propulsion drive an ashtray development.
What does that mean, an ashtray?
Means you put your ashtray butts out, your cigarette butts out. It's not that important.
Huh.
That there was a bigger picture to the technology, and I smiled at her and I said, free energy, and she said yes.
Oh, for heaven's sakes.
And I've had permission from her to follow this and to go on into it. So that's why I'm waiting. If I get the money, within a month after getting a hold of the funds, I can have a prototype in operation. Within a year's time, it can be in production and out to the public.
And you're willing to talk to people about it. In the meantime, if another person out there who loves this kind of stuff is interested in
anyone that wants to get in touch with me, I'm more than welcome in that. And you understand, I'll talk your ears off.
Okay. Yeah, if you understand. That's the hard part. My head was spinning a few times in talking with you before the show.
Because it can get very involved, very technically, and very mathematics involved in this. It is, as I said, it took them 20 to 30 years to come up with how, in physics, to describe it, the laws to do it, to explain it.
Now, apparently he had a very nice working relationship with the Air Force. Well, I mean, you said that they were using some of
Back in that time, for researchers to get funding from the government, you have to work with it. And that's what he was doing. So he was doing it to prepare, as a propulsion drive to get the funds for the Air Force.
Okay. And they were using some of his patents.
Well, he worked on it, and as I said, up until 1960. In 1960, he turned it over to them, and he wasn't able to work on it ever since.
Oh, dear. I've heard that happening so often.
They literally cut him off. He was not allowed to work with electrogravitics, and they had, according to his daughter, they had a lot of financial problems for quite some time.
So what they do is they have a basic researcher develop an idea. When it gets to a certain point, they take it away from them, and then it's out of their hands, and they're not allowed to. I've heard that with many research.
Because he had no college degree. This is a person who was completely self-taught.
And yet he has a lot of patents that are for very complicated electronics. You shared his patents, a book of his patents with me.
He was outdoing people who had PhDs in physics.
He actually was invited by NASA, was it? Did I do it?
No.
I'm sorry.
He passed away in 1985.
Oh.
He was with the Navy before World War II and was involved in a lot of things there, working at the Naval Research place in Washington, D.C. and that, with full physicists. And he was on an expedition that with a submarine that went down, and they were recording the magnetic fields in that down near the Atlantic Trench, down through that area.
Very volatile area.
He's an inventor of quite a few things in that.
Amazing what a self-taught man can do, including yourself.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing in that.
You've spent many decades studying this. And
I've had many people come up and I tell them, if you've been in college, I'm going to have to retrain you. Because they're taught to look with blinders on, and if it doesn't fit into their accepted theories, they ignore it.
Yes, that's true.
So it's quite sad.
Yeah.
And I have to virtually get that trained out of the person.
Yeah. Now, we have 5 minutes left to the show, so what last little tidbits about this work would you like to share with the audience just before our time is up?
Well, I can say this, that once I get the generator done, that's my power source. I have a second phase to my project. And that's done. I'm going to be building the craft.
Okay.
So if there's anyone out there that wants to get involved with it, I'm going to need hands, laborers.
Okay. Now, how about giving the audience some tips if they have see UFOs of their own, or they have a nice photo collection, they want to go back through it now with this new information, what should they be looking for to perhaps help identify what is an IFO or a UFO?
A lot of it's difficult if it's black in color, and if you can actually see the craft is black,
Sometimes,
it's ours.
Don't you think it's hard to tell if it's black versus just shadows or light, or it's at a distance and you can't quite tell?
It's hard to tell on some of them, but I can usually tell when I see the video or a photo on that, because I've been trained over the last 13 years. I've trained myself to look at it. Some of the plasma craft that we're seeing in Mexico could be ours. Up close, that could be how you're seeing it, because you're seeing the plasma, not the craft itself. Mm-hmm. Now, we don't know. And as you said earlier, when we talked in that, you've seen aliens coming out of it. So it could be that they're using the same principle as ours. Mm-hmm. We don't know. And it gets quite involved. I have had sightings myself. In fact...
now, that sighting when you were 13, what do you think it is now? Now, in retrospect.
That was probably a real UFO, because I actually saw the angel hair involved that are seen from these sites. And that's angel hair is produced because of the reaction of the field with the atmosphere around it. Is how it's created.
What is it, angel hair? Is it an actual...
It's hard. Sometimes the stuff that I saw immediately evaporated when it touched the ground. There have been times when...
That sounds like the kind of stuff I've heard coming off of chemtrails that had nothing to do with any UFO. It was those streaks in the sky that are coming off of jets in a very methodical pattern that expand over time, and a lot of people have reported this angel hair, only it's not a very friendly stuff. If you get it on you, it can be quite...
I would, anything of that, I'd be careful you don't touch it now.
Yeah,
anything
people have gotten quite ill from that.
No matter what it is, you stay away from it. Even getting close to, if a UFO is landed on the ground, don't go up to it.
Right, but that's a different...
Because there could be fields around it that can affect you. And it's best that you stay back away from it.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Even the craft that I've been building, these craft that I've shown that, there's a very immense plasma field around that craft.
That could be dangerous.
It could be very dangerous.
Okay. All right. Well, what we're going to do now, Jess, is let people know how to get in touch with you. So you're willing to talk to anybody if they're interested in talking about this subject, or if they want to know how to get more information on this subject or the work of Thomas Townsend Brown. This is how they can reach you. We're going to put the information up on the screen now. All right, so Jess Fritch's email address is djfritch2002@yahoo.com. Again, djfritch2002@yahoo.com. And when is UFO Connection on the air? We're on Wednesdays at 9:30 p.m. and Friday mornings at 5:30 a.m. right here on cable channel 17. And how can you get in touch with us here at UFO Connection with comments, questions? Contact us at www.ufoconnection.net. Well, Jess, thank you so much for being our guest on UFO Connection. It was fascinating. I really appreciate it.
I really appreciate you having me.
All right. And for UFO Connection, I'm your host, Cynthia Siegel. As always, thank you so much for watching. And remember, keep looking up.